Production funding for Ruckus has been provided by gifts from Dave and Jamie Cummings, the Hartwig family, Hush Blackwell, Barbara and Peter Gattermeyer, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to Ruckus, our weekly food for thought fight over the news of the day and the trends of the times. I'm Mike Shannon. The Ruckettes join me shortly, and our topics this week: Governor Greitens says no to downtown music and dance. Governor Brownback is probably dancing with joy over June's revenue results. And the Missouri GOP thinks it can defeat McCaskill, and it's not joshing. Plus, roast and toast. But we start with our Newsmaker segment and talk with the man who, along with the company he heads, has changed the conversation about the future of Kansas City International Airport. Burns & McDonnell has offered to privately finance, design, and build a one-terminal, $1 billion airport and leave operational control in the hands of Kansas City officials. Of course, there's much more to the story, and here to talk about it is Burns & Mac CEO Ray Kowalik. Ray, welcome to Ruckus. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
From reading about you and reading some of what you have written, I think it's fair to say you see this as both a civic opportunity and a business opportunity.
Yeah, and I'd add a third leg to that is an opportunity for our city. And our city needs a world-class airport that we don't have right now. The terminal situation at KCI is not the ideal one. And opportunity to create opportunity for jobs and economic growth for our city is a great part of that.
Well, when this first came up, there you were with the city manager and the mayor, and it sounded like this was something already completed. And then some members of the city council and some members of the public sort of expressed concern and wanted every company to have the chance to make a proposal. And now, as we're getting close to a deadline, from what I've read, it sounds like there are only two companies, yours and one other.
Yeah, we don't really know who's proposing or not. We hear some rumors through the mills of people being called around town. We've heard upwards of 4 or 5 might be proposing, but we really don't know.
Are you kind of irritated that you came up with this plan and went public with it and were led to believe that you would get the contract, and now that's up in the air?
Well, we knew what we were getting into, that this is a political process, that we thought that the city could enter into a negotiation. And by the way, we didn't offer a end game. We offered a path to getting to an end game that would give a lot of opportunities for the airlines.
Your company's no stranger to city politics. You've gotten contracts from the city on multiple occasions, and you and the company give money to the candidates who run for the council and for the mayor, so you're familiar with what's going on at City Hall.
Yeah, I mean, we're part of this community, and we've been here for a long time. We've been here for whatever it is, 119 years, and we picked this place because of its location in the central part of the United States to help our communities in the Midwest. And we knew that the process was, maybe we could get it done this way, but if not, that there was a path to get to the end.
Well, when the idea was introduced, it seemed as if Burns & McDonnell would be working alone. Then you added a couple of companies, local companies, and then a few more local companies. Was that to enhance expertise or to enhance political clout, or a bit of both?
Well, when we announced our plan, it was always intended to be as much as possible an all Kansas City team. We really wanted to get to the project being a real viable project before we started bringing in the entire community into the process. We always intended to bring in the construction and architectural community onto the team at some point where it made sense. It just kind of accelerated it to help the process and get to the RFP and just, it was always planned on doing.
Well, what's the benefit of private financing? I think you say it's cheaper, but there are those who say public financing through airport bonds was actually a cheaper way to do it, and that ultimately your approach would cause airline tickets to rise more significantly than they would rise otherwise.
Well, first of all,
is private financing cheaper?
My opinion, and I think the numbers will show, is that private financing can be competitive, if not cheaper, than public financing. And I think there's one misconception, and that one huge misconception is that tax-exempt private financing is not available in private financing. Tax-exempt financing is still an option in the financing plan. It was in our memorandum of understanding, but it is not working through the city of Kansas City. It'd be working through another agency to offer the tax-exempt financing.
In no case would taxpayers be involved in any direct way.
That's the beauty of our plan, right? Is because there is zero risk to the taxpayer because we're giving the guaranteed price, the guaranteed cost to get the financing together, and the optionality that we can decide when to go to public financing, and most importantly, we can build it faster. And so the cost of financing during the construction reduces significantly. I am very confident now the total financing cost will be significantly less than a public financing option.
Are you confident the voters will approve a new airport if they get a chance in November?
I am 100% confident the voters will approve this. You know, you think about the opportunity and you just look at the polling. The polling has shown that where our option is really well received. You generate local jobs for local companies. I'm very confident that if you put a team together, a good plan, and protect the taxpayer, they're going to be all for it.
Sorry, we're out of time. Wish we had more. Thank you very much for coming in.
Well, thank you.
That is the CEO of Burns & McDonnell, Ray Kowalik. Now let's meet the panel and start a ruckus. Attorney Laura McConwell is a former 3-term mayor of Mission, Kansas. Patrick McInerney is a former prosecutor, now in private law practice with Spencer Fane. Marianne Murray Simons is a freelance writer, consultant, and former broadcast journalist. And Woody Cozad is head of the Cozad Company, a government relations firm. Welcome back to all of you. It's good to see you again.
Thank you, Mike.
We're going to start in Kansas. When Kansas revenue projections came up short, as happened frequently, there was no shortage of news reports about it and the presumed failure of Governor Brownback's supply-side economic program. But there seemed to be less reporting about what happened in June, the last month of the state's fiscal year. Kansas collected $72 million more than forecast, meaning the state finished the year with a surplus just as higher income taxes were kicking in. The state's revenue secretary says growth in individual and corporate income taxes plus increased sales tax revenues gave the state a final figure of $5.82 billion, 1.3% more than expected. While this does not vindicate Brownback's approach, what can we infer from it? Supply-side economics work on occasion? June's collections were a fluke? Or something else? Let's start with Marianne.
Well, 1 month does not a turnaround make. There's a long way to recover in Kansas. I think we're on the right path now. The legislature overrode the veto of the governor, and we now have some new tax revenue that's going to help shore up what has become a big problem in the state of Kansas, and we've got a long way to go before we're back to where we were a number of years ago, before we depleted a lot of the reserves that we had in the state.
Marianne, the June figures, though, had nothing to do with the higher income tax levels, so how do you explain $72 million more than anticipated?
The economy's getting better.
In Kansas?
Across the country. It's an amazing thing. It trickles in all 50 states.
Laura, what's your impression? Does this suggest supply-side economics can work if given enough time, or do you think those figures are a fluke in June? Or?
I don't know that they're a fluke, but I would agree with Marianne that we need to see more than just 1 month of increased revenues before we're going to be able to determine a trend. And the state of Kansas has been to hundreds of $1 million deficit as opposed to just $72 million. So we need to see if this is a trend and continues. I'm happy. I'm sure the governor is thrilled that the revenue's turned around. I'm sure the legislature is as well. And then when the new tax plan takes effect, it's going to help shore up those gaps, because now we won't be ending with deficits.
Woody, might Brownback supporters argue this proves that this kind of supply-side economics program works, given enough time and given the national economy starting to recover?
Well, I'm not sure that's the argument I'd make. I'd make two arguments in Brownback's behalf. First of all, he didn't write this tax plan. We've just put back in power the people who did write it. They killed his tax plan. Under his plan, there wouldn't have been any tax rate reductions the whole time revenues were down. They only got a tax rate reduction under his plan when they went up. This would have been the first tax rate reduction.
And he also argued for less spending, and the state legislature,
but
while cutting taxes, increased spending.
The other thing I would point out is this. Here's what the thing that drives revenues in Kansas more than anything else: the price of oil and gas and the price of farm commodities. They've both been down, which is great for the economy of the country at large, but it's bad for revenues in Kansas, which proves beyond any doubt what Missourians have always said, that what's bad for Kansas is good for America, and what's good for Kansas is bad for America.
Despite ending the fiscal year with a slight surplus, Patrick, Kansas still facing enormous financial challenges, do you think, even though the income taxes have been raised?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, the very next thing on the doorstep of Kansas and the leadership in Kansas is the school funding issue. It's, I think, $293 million was the proposal recently, which, depending on who you listen to, comes out somewhere around $500 million shy.
But no, $1.5 billion shy.
If you buy the
according
1.7,
to
correct?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And I had the minority leader of the Kansas House as a guest on the program last week, and asked him about it, and he goes, $1.5 billion is real money, even in state government.
Well, it's a whole picture. I mean, what people like Laura McConnell know, who deal with this stuff and dealt with this stuff on the ground in municipalities day to day, is that 1 month is that's like declaring the winner in the third inning, right? So we've got to have a broader picture, and at the very next stop is this looming school funding issue, which hopefully will be a step or two toward resolution in the next month.
Final quick question, Woody. Chris Kobach has announced he'll run for governor in Kansas for the gubernatorial nomination on the GOP side. He says he'll run against higher taxes. Do you think a Republican can still win in Kansas, given what we've been through the last several years on a campaign of lower taxes?
Yeah, I think so, and I think I would add to that a plank that to put a constitutional amendment on the ballot that says a certain percentage of general revenue goes to K through 12 education as a minimum, and as long as you hit that minimum, school funding is no business of the courts.
In other words, relieving the state Supreme Court of the authority to decide how much money.
And who rules on the constitutionality of that?
Yeah, that'll be the Kansas.
And the voters.
As a constitutional amendment, I'd say the voters.
Yeah.
Right.
All right.
And then reviewed by the court.
No, constitutional amendments are not reviewed by the court. They can't declare a constitutional amendment.
Yes,
they can be.
If they strike that down, the next constitutional amendment is to change the court plan.
All right. The Kansas City Star columnist Steve Kraske is predicting Missouri U.S. Senator Claire McCaskill may face the fight of her political life next year if a certain Republican runs against her, and Kraske is saying that quite clearly. The Republican is recently elected Missouri Attorney General Josh Hawley, a former law professor who is said by Jack Danforth to be a once-in-a-generation talent. Kraske posed 3 questions in his column. Will Hawley run? Should he run? And can he beat Claire McCaskill? Kraske says the answer to all 3 is yes. Is that also your answer, Woody?
Well, he can beat her. At this point, according to the polls, just about any Republican will beat her. This is now, it's not election day. Hawley is a formidable candidate. If I were his advisor, what I would be saying to him is don't do this. You have started building your reputation on an excellent resume and being an outsider. If you immediately run off to try and get into the United States Senate, you undermine your role as an outsider. Secondly, the worst thing is you might win. And if you win, you're a member of the United States Senate. And that's a dead end right now and has been for a while, and I think will be for a long time to come.
I know you have met Hawley and I assume spent some time with him. What prompts Danforth's assessment of him as a once-in-a-generation talent?
He's the third one that Danforth has said that about in the last 30 years. And all of them were highly talented people. But look, he is. This time, I think I agree with Danforth on this one. And so personally, again, I hope he doesn't do this. I hope he gets reelected as AG, runs for governor, and then goes on to one of the 2 jobs in Washington he ought to be interested in, Supreme Court Justice or President of the United States.
Patrick, do you think McCaskill is vulnerable?
I think any Democrat's vulnerable in Missouri right now. If you look at the spread.
Why would that be?
Well, if you look at the spread in the state last year, 19 points or so. But But I think all this has to be informed by the blunt candor result as well, because that was much more about being outside versus inside as it was Democrat versus Republican. So how that dynamic applies in this potential race is tough to tell, and I'm the first guy to admit my compass is broken. I think it's a very hard prediction to make at this point.
Do you think Trump is still quite popular in Missouri?
I think the forces that elected Trump still cling, I think, strongly to what they believe. And I think there is, I think a lot of that came from a final sense of a big middle finger to the establishment, and I think that's still out there. I know that's still out there.
Laura, McCaskill had an easy campaign in 2012 because of an inept opponent, Todd Akin, who made a stupid remark. Do you think she's ready for a tough campaign with an articulate opponent?
Claire Sharp, and she's somebody who I met as a young attorney when she was here in Jackson County. But we're looking at politics, and we're looking at all the history that's behind. And I think in Missouri she's vulnerable for a solid Republican candidate. I mean, I think had the candidate that ran against her that was out saying irresponsible things not said irresponsible things, she would have been in trouble then. But with Hawley, he ran to be an attorney general, and if that's what his passion is, and having been a law professor, I suspect the law is, I would hope that he would stay there and kind of make a mark as an attorney general rather than, jump over to a different type of a race, because Congress is completely different than attorney general.
And that might be the primary criticism. You've just been in office less than 2 years.
Right.
And you said you're an outsider. Now you're performing like an insider.
The footnote to this, I think, is, and you know this, and everybody around the table knows this, you can never, never, never count Claire McCaskill down.
No.
Right.
Because she is a phenomenal politician. I mean that in the best sense of the word. And has done a tremendous job in the Senate.
And Mary Ann, she's already raised $5 million.
Right.
And she brings other strengths to the campaign. What would you say they are?
Well, she's experienced, and I think there is a lot to be said for that. She also represents more urban Missouri, and that's part of the rub, I think, the whole urban-rural vote and how it goes. Trump's numbers are extremely strong, some say up to 50%, and a lot of those folks will be looking for a replacement candidate to come in to overcome Claire.
And I do think that that's a problem, and I think that it's a criticism of Claire, is that she kind of caters to urban city, and she really doesn't care about the rural folks or necessarily Republicans in general, and they're just kind of country bumpkins. And that's a big problem, because that disenfranchises a whole lot of people that you're representing.
And she's good on her feet, a good debater.
Well, you know what? When you take a hard look at her record, though, I don't know that that's borne out. I know what that perception is.
Well, but sometimes we know perception's reality, which is why I'm not being critical of other things.
And I think her challenge is to define that.
She got a decent vote in the country the first time she got elected to the Senate. And she did that because she'd been auditor and a prosecutor. Yeah. Tough on law and order, tough with the public's money. Nobody believes that anymore. So how does she do anything outstate?
And minimum wage was on the Missouri ballot, I think, the first year she was elected to the Senate.
Good memory.
Another Missouri Republican, Governor Eric Greitens, is popular and much admired by conservatives. He is probably not so popular or admired in the arts departments at UMKC. Greitens vetoed a $48 million legislative gift to the university designed to match private gifts of the same amount. The money was planned for an arts campus downtown near the Kauffman Center. Supporters envisioned the downtown campus becoming the Juilliard of the West. Greitens says he's a fan of the arts, but defends his veto by noting the state has to make tough calls. So will Greitens veto end plans for a downtown arts campus in Kansas City, or just end the state's involvement? Patrick.
Well, it certainly ends the state's involvement, but I don't think it's a stop for the arts project downtown, for the arts campus downtown. What we hear from the leaders of that campaign, what we hear from the leaders of Kansas City and the university, is that they're still committed, and the major funder is still committed to the project. So, what this really did is reveal what Greitens' sentiments are, his contempt for this city, his contempt for his really thinly veiled contempt for people he can't do push-ups with. When he dismissed the artists and the dancers as not worthy of his time or state funding, it was well beyond the arts department at UMKC that took offense to it. I did, and I think a lot of people in Kansas City, and I think a lot of people across the state were really pushed back by that.
Well, do you not think he raised any legitimate concerns about the expenditures of state money?
You know, this was overwhelmingly supported in the legislature. This had overwhelming civic support.
That's why governors have veto power.
It had 50% of the funds raised privately. And it generates, like the mayor said, it generates a tremendous amount of money. He's not offering to give that back. He'll take that tax revenue any day. But what he did is, again, try to burnish his resume for whatever in the world he has in mind in 2020 and beyond.
Mary Ann, do you think this downtown campus is of such importance that the effort needs to continue?
I do. This
Why?
is all about preserving the arts, economic development in downtown Kansas City, and it's really one of the big 5 initiatives that the Chamber of Commerce has been backing for a long period of time. A lot of civic support, a lot of private support, and the state needs to get behind what the value of the arts brings to downtown Kansas City. But
Mary Ann, are we hearing about cuts to the University of Missouri and the University of Missouri system?
Yes.
At a time the legislature is talking about giving $48 million to build a downtown arts campus?
I understand what you're saying, and it is a balancing act, and it's a really tough one, but I agree exactly with what Patrick said. The legislature representing the people overwhelmingly supported this, and we need to not be looking at long-term political gain on the part of one individual at the expense of the whole.
Woody, how did Greitens defend his veto?
Well, he did say, and I agree with Patrick. First of all, I helped get this through the Missouri Senate. I didn't get paid to get it, but I helped do it.
Good for you.
Yeah, well.
Why? Why'd you do that?
Because I thought it was a good idea. Because you got 41 million of private money, 7 million of the city's money. When Ashcroft was governor, that's what got you state money.
Correct.
You bring in the private money, we'll give you state money.
Truly a partnership.
Now, then, the president of the university system undercut that position when he announced we're going to raise the money privately. Because now he vindicated Greitens.
Well, but wait a minute.
Why should we put in $48 million of state money? Greitens is going to say.
Woody, he saw writing on the wall. They knew that was coming 4 hours before Greitens got it out. And he had to put up that mock-up veto stamp across the thing and tweet it out.
Look,
I mean, they saw that coming.
I'm not defending Greitens' veto. What I'm saying is the university fouled up when it immediately said we can raise the money privately. Greitens is going to say, "See, I told you."
Cried uncle.
And that. Look, it isn't 48 million, it's 88 million. They need 40 million to endow this operation once they build the building. Now, I don't know if they can raise the 88 million. I hope they can. But I think it was a big mistake to jump right up and say, oh yeah, we're going to get this done. Maybe we are and maybe we're not. But the idea that we should say that and essentially vindicate the veto after a bunch of us worked to get this thing done doesn't strike me as a smart thing for the university to do.
Do you find the downtown arts campus an appealing idea?
I do, and I think that it blends some public and some private type partnerships, but you know, I thought that it would have been good to move the stadiums downtown too, because you can benefit and you can leverage a whole lot of different assets, both from private and public, and it takes less of both to put that all together and create a synergy, which I think would help. I think would help the metropolitan area. And you know, we've got a lot of families that have worked very hard to get the Kaufman downtown and to create a beautiful area which wasn't that nice, and so I think we need to continue pushing it forward. And I agree with Woody. I don't know that you cry uncle right now. I think you continue figuring out, all right, where's the point that this is helping, but that you have real private skin in the game makes it worthwhile.
Well, had Greitens gotten more votes from Kansas City, he might have had a different attitude toward
But you know what? It just so happens he's governor for the whole state.
Yeah.
That's the way that works.
I was just being facetious.
I know you weren't, Mike.
And now we head to the soapbox for Roast and Toast, where the Ruckettes have 30 seconds each to offer a pat on the back or a kick in the pants to people and events in the news. And we start with Woody.
Speaking of the University of Missouri at Kansas City, Chancellor Leo Morton has announced that at the end of this next academic year, he'll be departing as chancellor. He is one of the best chancellors the university's ever had, which brings me to the roast half of this presentation. The faculty was threatening a vote of no confidence in him, which they have done for every competent chancellor that campus has ever had. They had a vote of no confidence on George Russell. It's time for the Board of Curators to remind the faculty of who has governance of the University of Missouri system. It's in the Constitution, and it isn't the faculty.
Laura.
I am going to toast Senator Jim Denning. I think he's been a real leader in the Kansas legislature, and he worked hard to help close some of the gaps on the budget. And he was find himself in a really tough spot, but I think he brought his pragmatic Kansas can-do to that position, and so I'm going to toast him.
Marianne.
I have been very fortunate throughout my career to be involved in the media, either directly or on the periphery, and I am increasingly concerned about a lack of freedom of the press. I think it's a real threat, both nationally and at a state level. We all need to understand what the issues are. We all have our own bent. People need to make decisions based on information, and that comes from the media. And to quote Thomas Jefferson, our liberty depends on the freedom of the press, and that cannot be limited without being lost.
Patrick.
I had the good fortune to know Jim Nutter, and I knew him in a couple different contexts. I knew him because he was a silent, almost a secret funder of the first AIDS hospice here in Kansas City some 20 years ago, and didn't want people to know about it, not because he was embarrassed, because he thought it was the right thing to do, and he did those quiet good deeds. I also knew him. I sat in the candidate chair in his office and listened to him tell me why outstate white women in Illinois determined the race for Carol Moseley Braun in '92. That's where he lived, and we have lost a great champion and a great civic communicator.
And that is Ruckus for this time. We're back next Thursday at 7. Now for the Ruckettes and the crew, Mike Shannon saying thanks for watching and good night.